Hi everyone. Let's have a quick little introduction to the latest tariffs that Trump has introduced. Before we go any further, of course, we need to quickly define what a tariff is. It's not a complicated idea. It's very straightforward. It's simply a tax that's imposed on an imported product. It's not a tax that's imposed on foreigners. It's not a tax that is paid by a foreign company that produces the product. It's a tax that is paid by a locally operating importing company when it purchases a product from overseas. So, for example, let's say we were interested in importing steel. We wanted to import a ton of steel. We might want to purchase that in the world market for around about $700 US dollars per ton. Now, if a tax or a tariff were imposed on the import of that steel, then let's say it's a 25% tax, then the overall price that would have to be paid by the importer would be the $700 plus an extra 25%. So that would come to $875 US for the ton of steel. It's a pretty straightforward idea. Obviously, we can see that the immediate effect is to increase the price of the imported steel within, say, the United States. So, what are the tariffs that have been imposed by the Trump administration? Well, the first one is a 20% tariff that's been imposed on imported goods from China. Initially, that was a 10% tariff, and Trump changed his mind and increased it to 20%. There's also, somewhat extraordinarily, a 25% tariff on imported goods from Mexico and Canada, with a few exceptions here and there. This is extremely unusual because Mexico and Canada are the United States' closest allies and two of its biggest trading partners. 40% of imports in the United States are coming from China, Mexico, and Canada. So we can see here, these are major items that would be affected by this 25% tariff for Mexico and Canada and 20% for China. You can see it's delivery trucks, insulated wire, computers, cars, and so on. It's a lot of it's manufactured goods, and then there's the petroleum as well. Also, it's worth noting electric batteries, which would be relevant to, say, an electric car company owned by, say, Elon Musk. There's also a 25% worldwide tariff imposed on steel and aluminium imported into the United States. This will hit Canada, Brazil, and Mexico particularly hard because these are the three largest suppliers of steel and aluminium to the United States, as we can see there in the bar graph. The President of the United States is able to impose these tariffs at will. It's not required that he obtain congressional approval for that. He can do it independently of Congress and the Senate. So it does mean that the level of these taxes, the extent to which they're going to be imposed, what period of time we're talking about, and whether they will be expanded in any way, is something that is essentially up to the President and his advisors. Unfortunately for everyone else in the world, well, everyone in the United States and everywhere else, Trump's an extremely unpredictable political character. We don't know why that's the case exactly, but it could be it's a personality trait. It might be that it's a kind of strategy, at least in his own mind, of some kind, or it just might be an indicator of senility. We don't know. But what we do know is that there's an uncertainty about it. We can't really tell the difference definitively between a threat and a promise. And if he does make promises, we don't know the extent of his commitment to those promises. A question that arises is, will this lead to a tit-for-tat trade war? Well, the tariffs that are imposed by the United States, aside from steel and aluminium, are really quite country-specific at this point. So most other countries in the world are not directly affected by the tariff impositions. We know that it's permissible under WTO, World Trade Organization rules, to engage in retaliation. So in the case of Mexico, they've declined to retaliate at this particular point in time. But retaliation has occurred already on the part of Canada. They've imposed a 25% tariff on imported goods from the United States. This is for selected goods, and it does seem to be quite targeted at this point. The kinds of goods that they've selected to impose tariffs on are goods which tend to be produced in Trump-supporting areas of the United States. So it seems that this kind of a tariff is a very specific kind of strategy designed to pressure the president himself. China has imposed 10 to 15% tariffs on some US agricultural products. Again, this could be thought of as a strategic decision. The agricultural sector in the United States has significant lobbying power in Washington, and it may be that China thinks that by pressuring the agricultural sector in the United States, they will in turn bring political pressure to bear on the president to reverse his decision. As to whether this will be successful, this kind of strategy will be successful, again, we don't know because we're dealing with Donald Trump. So he may back down. He's backed down on things in the past. In other cases, he has doubled down on, for kind of slightly childish way, on other issues in the past. We just don't know. We do know that he is quite erratic and often has extremely strange ideas. So one might recall when he was previously president, he asked whether it would be possible to combat a hurricane by launching a nuclear weapon at it. Clearly, this is a level of, how would you say, strangeness and incompetence that we're not really used to in the world.